Hey guys, so we're going to try something new, which is anytime we do a message here at Chaos, I'm going to record it again the next day so that if you miss something or want to look at something again, or maybe you missed Wednesday night altogether, this is a way for you to not miss what we learned the previous night. So excited to do this. We're going to pick up with the message from last night, which was February 12th. And here's the thing. This is my favorite rock, okay? This is not just some random old rock that I picked out of a parking lot or off the ground. This is a rock that I really cherish because it was given to me by a mentor of mine, and he brought it to me from the Valley of Elah in Jerusalem. Now, you may not know where the Valley of Elah is, what's significant about the Valley of Elah, uh, but if you know your Bible, if you've read in the book of First Samuel, you'll know about the story of David and Goliath. You probably know that story as it is. And David battles Goliath in the Valley of Elah. So now you see why this rock is significant. It's not just some random old rock. It's been given to me to kind of send me a message, to be a lesson to me, which is I can, just like David did, trust in the Lord, be courageous, and put my faith into Him. And when I have challenges in life, I can think about this rock and I can think about the fact that God was with David and He will be with me through my challenges as well. The Bible, you guys, is so full of stories, of places, of people, of all sorts of things, events, histories, stories about things that people did, what they did it with, things like David and Goliath. And you might not think about it, but David had to pick up real rocks, and he used his real sling to hit Goliath in the head with that rock and kill him to prove that God would be with him in battle. And it proves to us today that we can trust in God as well. So it tells us in the Bible what happened, who did things, where they were when they did things. And the amazing thing about living in the day and age we do is that people are always working. Over the last couple hundred years, in fact, they've been working in the area that the Bible took place, digging and searching for cities, searching for artifacts, searching for all sorts of evidences that prove the history that we've been taught and the history that we think that we know. And so it's amazing. No archaeological find in the Holy Land, the place where the Bible took place, has ever disproved what the Bible said. In fact, all of it that we are finding is backing up the things that are said in the Bible. The places exist, the people exist. We're finding evidence in writings and all sorts of other things that prove out that the Bible is true. So, what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through a number of different things that have been found in archaeological findings that are really significant, and then teach you how they prove out the Bible. And I hope it can be helpful for you guys. So first artifact is this. This is the Code of Hammurabi. So this is a real picture. This is my wife standing next to the Code of Hammurabi. She's potentially too close to it. It's trying to take a picture of it. It's this big black rock, and it's inscribed. It has a picture up at the top you can see, and then the rest of it, all the way down to the bottom and all on the back side, has this language carved into it. This Code of Hammurabi, this big rock, is dated to about 1750 BC, so before Jesus was born. And so we're talking almost 4,000 years ago. This was created, and it was created by the king of Babylon at the time. And basically what it is it's his legal code. This Code of Hammurabi, the king of Babylon, would have been posted somewhere so that it was known by all the laws of his land. And so what does this have to do with the Bible? This is some king that we don't care about. He's not a king that God was with or anything like that. But in the Code of Hammurabi, we're talking about around the same time as Joseph and all the things that happened in Joseph's life. You can read about Joseph in the book of Genesis. On the Code of Hammurabi, it says that the price for a slave in this time, in this day and age, that Hammurabi sets is 20 shekels. Okay. And then you go into your Bible, and when Joseph is being sold into slavery, he is sold for 20 shekels. So this doesn't have to necessarily, these findings, these things that are in archaeological findings, don't necessarily have to do exactly with the Bible. In fact, it's almost better when it's some outside source. This King Hammurabi is somewhere in the vicinity of what's going on in the Bible, but away from him. He's not being recorded, but he says a slave is 20 shekels. Well, in Genesis, it says a slave or Joseph is sold for 20 shekels. So it proves out the Bible. Pretty amazing thing to think about. The next thing is this. This is the king list. This is the Sumerian culture's list of their kings. And it's a big four-sided rock that, once again, it's sort of like a tablet, has been carved into this rock very carefully, their language, and it's recording the different kings that ruled over the Sumerian people. This is even older. This is over 4,000 years old, somewhere around 2000 BC. And so this is interesting, and this connects to the Bible because it lists 8 different kings, then a flood happened, messing their culture up. And then after that, it continues on recording different kings who ruled over the land in Samaria. So at some point, we can't know, but it's assumed that this was begun. Then the flood happened. And so there had been a recording of 8 kings. The flood happens. Somewhere along the line, this is picked back up, and they add to this king list, there was a big flood, and here's what happened. And then they continue on writing who the kings were. So 8 kings, flood, ongoing down the list of more kings. Do you know how many generations there are in the Bible from Adam, the first created man, to Noah when the flood happened? 8 generations. The timeline matches perfectly with what our Bible says happened in the world. So there is another proof, another thing from outside the Bible. This is Sumerian people living in the same area as the stories in the Bible, but this is an outside confirmation that there were 8 generations of people from the beginning of time. And then there was a big flood, ruined everything, took the whole earth out, and then back there was more life after that, and that would have had to been a continuation of Noah and his family. Pretty amazing to think about. The next thing is this. This is a recording of the plagues of Egypt, but not the Bible's recording of the plagues of Egypt. It's likely that Moses is the one who wrote in the book of Exodus about all the things that happened to the Egyptians when Pharaoh wouldn't let the Jews, God's people, go. You've probably heard the song, Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Okay. This is an Egyptian's version of the story. So some Egyptian writer writes down what was happening in their world at that time. And basically what he says is this, and this is around 1200 BC, which lines up with the Bible's timeline of things with the Exodus. He talks about the river turning to blood. He talks about famine and lack of food. He talks of the death of firstborn children. He talks, most importantly, about the gods that the Egyptians worshipped all being defeated in a battle. How does this connect to the Bible? Well, those are the plagues that we read about in Exodus. There are 10 plagues that God sends upon Egypt and upon Pharaoh and upon the Egyptian people. And God's plagues that he sends each attack one of the gods that the Egyptians followed and worshipped. Okay? And so here's an outside source once again saying all of this terrible stuff happened. It was an awful, awful time. And it's proving out what happened in the Bible in the book of Exodus. It's pretty amazing. Next thing is a scroll. Okay, I heard a great joke that was they used to write on tablets, stone tablets. Then they used to make scrolls out of paper, and then eventually they would make books. And now, today in 2025, we scroll through books on tablets. Okay, funny archaeology joke. The Great Isaiah Scroll is from 300 BC. And this is an almost perfect match to the next oldest copy of Isaiah that we had, which was 1,000 years older than this. And there's a less than 1% difference in those 2 copies. And so I hope that makes sense to you guys. When this was discovered, this was a part of what's called the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was one of the most groundbreaking, amazing discoveries there was, because it proved that the way that the Bible was translated and copied and kept up over a course of 1,000 years was unbelievably accurate. It would be like playing the telephone game for 1,000 years across different cultures and all sorts of things, and ending up with basically the exact same thing. Incredible to think about. And it proves that our Bible has been translated and copied very, very accurately. Now we come into Jesus's life. Last couple of ones. The Cana wedding jars. These jars are giant jars, like would have been filled up at the wedding in Cana where Jesus turned water into wine. Those ones were found in Cana. We don't know that those are the exact ones. It's a bit like my rock. Could they be the exact ones? Maybe. It's sort of unlikely, but we know that those jars existed. That's a real thing that was used at that time, mostly for washing your hands and things like that. But in the event of a party or something like that, would have been used to carry the wine, the water, whatever else they were carrying, to be able to be drunk by the people who were attending a wedding. Next one, the Pilate stone and the Pilate ring. This is a dedication to a building that the governor Pilate, who sentenced Jesus to his crucifixion, had written on his building that he had built, and that is a ring that we believe is Pilate's as well. Before these two things were found, the only evidence that the person Pilate existed were writings, which we can trust writings for sure. But when we find extra evidence of things, it is that much better. So you can see that it says Tiberium Pontius Pilatus Prefectus Judea. So he is the governor over Judea. And then his ring says Pilato, which is the Greek version of his name, Pilate. So Pilate existed. He's a real person who really existed and was governor over the area that Jesus lived in when he lived his life. And this is our last thing. I know you can't see the A. It's the Alexamenos Graffito. And here's what I want to teach you about this. You can see that this is a scraping into a wall of a picture of Jesus with a donkey head on the cross, and then the guy there with his hand raised in worship. And those words underneath it say, Alexamenos, a name of a person, worships his God. So this teaches us a few things. It teaches us that in the city of Rome, where this is found, in 90 AD to 200 AD, there were followers of Jesus. They worshiped Jesus as God, not as a teacher, not as a prophet, not as something like that. He was God to the believers in Rome. And those believers were being persecuted, at least trying to be made fun of. They were trying to make them feel bad for the fact that the guy that they worshipped was killed on a cross. That's why they put the donkey head on Jesus in this crude little drawing. They're saying, Jesus is a joke, you guys. Alexamenos is a joke because he worships this guy who's crucified. Well, here's the lesson, you guys. This is the thing that I want to teach you that is most important for us to get. It's that all those years ago, people who were believers in Jesus and trying their best to worship him and follow him were being made fun of for the way that they lived their life. This guy, we don't know if it was his friends who did it, his colleagues, somebody who just wanted to make him feel bad, who knew that he followed Jesus. Regardless of that, they're making fun of him for worshiping Jesus. There's some reason that they feel it's important that Alexamenos feels bad that he worships this Jesus. But here's what I want you to think about. We need to know and value God's opinion of us far more than the people around us. We need to know that God's opinion of us is greater than our friends at school or kids at school. Other people's opinions, they are important sometimes, but what God thinks about is most important. So his friends made this graffiti and drew it in the wall and thought, oh, they're getting him so good. But in reality, God is looking at Alexamenos, worshiping him despite the fact that he's being made fun of, and thinking, good job, Alexamenos, you're doing it. And so this is what we need to know as followers of Jesus today. If you're a teenager watching this and you are trying to follow Jesus, it's more than likely that you've been excluded from things. You've been made fun of for the way that you live your life, the things that you won't say, do, watch, smoke or drink, you're going to be made fun of for that because you are trying to follow Jesus as best you can. Other people don't get it. Other people are going to make fun of you. It's just a part of following Jesus. Jesus said, when you are mistreated because of me, you will be blessed. Here's what Paul says as well in this verse in 1 Corinthians. He says, the Jews demand a sign and Greeks look for wisdom, but we as Christians preach Christ crucified. We preach Christ on a cross, but we don't put a donkey head on him. He says, but those Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. He's trying to say this. He's trying to say, look, there are going to be people who do not get it. There are going to be people who feel the need to make fun of you for the fact that you worship Jesus as God for whatever reason, be it that you don't go to parties, that you don't date around and do whatever, that you don't watch certain things or watch certain TV shows or whatever, that you don't listen to certain music or talk in a certain way that's unglorifying to God. People are going to think you're weird for doing those things. But what does Paul say? God is stronger. God is wiser. And so if you follow God, if you do things God's way, you're going to be made fun of, but the reality is God looks on you and is so grateful and is so joyful and is so prideful of you doing your best to follow him. And so that's what I want to leave you with. There are a lot of cool things that you can look up, and I encourage you to look up more things that prove the Bible that have been found in archaeological digs. It's amazing to think about. If you're interested in it, look at it and deep dive into all the things that you can find. I gave you just a few scratching the surface ones today. But the big lesson is, when other people make fun of you for following Jesus, don't let it get to your heart. Know that when you are following Jesus to the best of your ability, you are pleasing God more than you could ever do. And that's why we stand firm in the Lord. Thanks for watching, you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.